Well, hello and welcome to the Lowry and people on the online. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So yeah, I'm Charlie Salter. I'm a black woman. I have short black hair. I have blue glasses. I have a checkered shirt, a grey t-shirt, some light jeans and some Nike black trainers. And so I am an associate artist for Access All Areas, and I'm also a co-chair of the board for Access All Areas.
Hello everyone, my name's Charlotte Little from DIY Theatre Company. I'm wearing a red DIY t-shirt, white pants and black trainers.
So Access All Areas is a pro-production theatre company for learning disabled and autistic, and we basically make shows immersive, and we also break barriers, but we also, the important thing is that we make to help organisations to make them accessible, and also to actually get paid work for access for learning disabled and autistic artists.
DIY Theatre Company are a company of all different disabilities, and we've just done a performance called Hanging by a Thread, which is a multi-sensory performance.
Yeah, and also me and you, Charlotte, we've done transforming leadership, haven't we? And we also got some transforming leadership in the audience. Say hello. And we also got some online. Hello.
We'll be talking a bit more about transforming leadership later on. If anyone needs the toilets, they're out of this door and then go along to door B and then follow it round. And there's also an access toilets near the men's toilets. If anyone needs a key, just ask at the desk. And there will be a break halfway through for 20 minutes, and there will be refreshments out of this door.
Oh. And also, who else have we got in the room? Oh yeah, we got to say hello to Matt.
Can you come up?
I'll come and say hello. I'll borrow that, Charlotte.
Yep.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the wonderful welcome. I'm Matthew Eames. I'm head of theatres here at Lowry. I'm about average height, short, greying hair, grey, or eyes grey, brown trousers, flowery shirt, yes, I just wanted to take a moment to officially welcome, from a Lowry point of view. We're delighted to be able to host the culmination of the Transforming Leadership programme. We've been working with Access All Areas for probably nearly 10 years now, if not longer, and we've commissioned them. We've worked and recently, mutually agreed that we'd benefit from being partners and really embedding those relationships over a longer period of time. And we're working together on some fantastic things that I'm sure you'll hear more about soon. But they also came to us with the idea of not just presenting work from their wonderful artists, but also just think about how we can embed learning disabled and autistic artists and people within our building better. And we took them at that word, and there was a real appetite from our teams to want to learn more and to do better. And so we were delighted to be a part of this programme and to work so closely with Sue and DIY, and a big thank you to Sue and DIY for supporting us in this journey as well. It's been a fantastic journey, and I think what's been the most exciting thing has been how much we have learned, but also how confident our teams have become in embracing all these opportunities we have to learn more and do better with more people within our community. So thank you. I'm sure there's going to be lots to learn today, and yeah, I'm really excited to hear the rest of the event. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you. So now we are going to see who else is in the room with us. So please, Helen.
Hello. Hi. Hello, I'm Helen Breyer. I'm the Director of Take Part and Train at Access All Areas. I am a plus-size white woman with light brown and lots of grey in my hair. Today I am wearing a black jumpsuit and bright red Doc Marten boots. Who's next?
Hello, everybody. Hello. I'm Nick Llewellyn. I'm Artistic Director of Access All Areas. I am a white man in his mid-40s with short, spiky hair, black trousers, and a blue checkered shirt. Not as good as yours, Charlene, though, I have to be honest. Brilliant.
Hello, everyone. My name is Paul Christian. I'm Deputy Coach of Access All Areas, and I'm also an associate artist, and I'm a black British man who's wearing a grey thin shirt with grey trousers and some black trainers.
Hello, I am Patrick Collier. I am a tall, pale, white Irishman with, don't laugh, with fairish, greyish hair and a greyish beard. And I'm wearing a navy shirt and jeans and white sneakers. I'm staying on. Could we have the next slide, please? Yeah, we've done that, so we go on to the agenda. Thank you. Okay. Shall I take us through the agenda, Charlene?
Oh, yes, please, Patrick.
Okay, so just talk a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. First off, we're going to kick off with some examples from our Making Work Accessible ideas. So these are the examples of the type of work some of our associate artists have done, the type of work that Charlotte and Charlene have done. Then we will look a little bit at our Transforming Leadership program. This has been a 2.5-year program where we've upskilled different organizations and artists. So we'll look at that too. And then I will be talking about payments and benefits, I'm afraid. It'll be super exciting. Then we will have a break for about 20 minutes, refreshments outside. And then next slide, please. We will look at our model of co-leadership. We'll talk more about that later. Then we'll talk about creative support and what we mean by creative support workers. And lastly, again, you finish with the fun, I will talk about access to work for about 20 minutes. I should have said before the break and before the end, there will be a chance for questions. So we'll put questions out for the room and on the live stream. So if you've got any questions, do hold them to before the break and before the end. What we're saying to anybody online, if you want to write a question in and we don't get to it in time, we might not get to all the questions, please feel free to write the question in the chat and leave your email address as well. And then we'll do our best to follow up by email and answer your question afterwards. Same in the room. If you've got a question in your head and we don't get to you, ask us afterwards, ask us at the end, or please feel free to email us your question as well. At 4:30, we're going to say goodbye to the live stream audience, but we will be staying in the room. There will be some refreshments again, so please feel free to stay and chat with us for another half hour or so if you want to. I think that's everything. I will hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
Now we're going to be talking about making work accessible.
All right. Yeah. Charlene, we're going to talk about making work accessible.
Oh, yes, very exciting.
And we've got some examples, like Patrick said, of some of the artists that Access All Areas has worked with, and what kind of roles they're in and what kind of work they do. Who's the first one, Charlene?
I don't know. Who is she? Who is she?
Who is she?
Yeah, so, I would say, being with Access All Areas and also doing a transfer leadership, it's kind of made me grow, not just an actor, but also a person. And it's like, it's made me like more wiser, and it's made me, you know, a bit more confident, and it's made me like, to actually put my input in, like whether I know what's right and what's wrong, so no one tells me, you know, what's right and wrong. And, you know, I want to represent learning disabled and autistic to make sure, you know, their voices are heard, and also to, you know, to make sure that, you know, that we're not in boxes like we used to be, you know. We want to, like, you know, show that we are capable of doing these roles, and we should be, you know, able to get paid work no matter what. So, yeah.
Thank you, Charlene. And what I would add to that from a sort of organisational perspective, I suppose, is that Charlene's work as chair and as an artist really sort of has transformed the way that we work, and I think makes us a better, more creative, more accessible organisation, the more and more of this work that we do. So that's why we're here. Yeah, who's next, Charlene?
Next we've got Adam Smith, who is our co-director for Take Part. So that means that's part of our community work that we do for our participants, where we help them gain their confidence in drama. And also Adam is a music composer, so he uses music to adapt for the participants as well.
Yeah, so all of our participation work is co-led, and the impact that I would say that someone like Adam working across those projects has, well, there's lots of impacts, but one of the main ones is in the participants that we're working with, because they are coming in and they are seeing someone who is proudly neurodivergent, proudly autistic, leading and being an artist and doing an amazing job. And they're able to see that, and kind of that raises aspirations, and it gives a kind of idea of what they might want to do in the future. It makes a tangible difference in the room. Yeah. Paul, tell us about you.
Something about me. Being on the Access All Areas train journey has brought me to more highs than lows. It's brought me confidence that I never thought I had. You know, it made me bring up my confidence side, and it made me use my knowledge to talk to people, to talk to leaders, and to become a teacher, which also I never thought I would be, to teach in many areas, like in professional areas, like to teach athletes to make a significant impact in the acting companies. It's a great joy for me.
And as well as doing all of that teaching and training work, you're also a researcher and a speaker. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I'm also part of the Open University, which I'm doing with this woman called Sue Ledger, who has a PhD in learning and disability history, so she knows her stuff. And we're doing easy reads that I'm researching on big issues like discrimination, intersectionality, and an institution, and how they connect. And we also are doing finding. We've found 21 missing Black stories, which hasn't been publicly no one known about these Black histories. So I'm trying to do research and do writing and finding out of these missing stories and unearthing them.
Thanks, Paul. And last but not least on our examples.
Yes, yes, as you can know, one of our artists is Deo Conioso, and hey, apologies. Yes, Deo is, as you know, if you're big EastEnders fans,
It's because we know Coronation Street is over the road.
yeah, apologies. Deo plays Kojo in EastEnders, and Deo is one of our associate artists, and as you can see, it can happen. It's just the reason why there ain't no more. Why?
Yeah. And hopefully we can do a bit of changing that today.
Yes.
Yeah. And the structures and some of the things that we're going to talk to you about this afternoon are some of the things that we have found can help to make things like this happen. And these are just some examples of the kind of roles that people might go into. But the sort of common thread through is that things like co-leadership, things like creative support, things like access to work, things like knowing about payments can make this possible. I'm going to sit down now, I think.
Yes.
Oh, one more thing on Deo, sorry. He also, in addition to being in EastEnders and being amazing and being on our TVs every day, he's also still doing his own work, and he's devising and writing and making his own work. And he will be at the Lowry later this year. And you're going to hear more about that later on.
You tease, Helen, you tease. Okay. So, Charlotte, tell us a little bit more about this Transform Leadership National programme that you were on.
So the Transforming Leadership Programme was 14 companies in different locations, and in them companies were 7 different people, and one of them, who can't be here today, called Emma, was on the governor's side, because there was 2 sides. One was governors, one was co-directing, and I was on the co-directing group.
Right, okay, so two strands, governance and co-directing. We've got 7 loan-disabled arts companies from across the whole of the UK. Waver, you're in one of those companies? Woo! And lots of people watching online as well, with 7 venue partners as well, including the Lowry, of which one of those venues too. Brilliant. And Charlotte, so how did it work in practice, the Transform Leadership Programme?
We did the all the lessons were online, so we did with me and Paul co-leading that online.
And so you and Paul were on the original Transform Leadership Programme, and then everything we learned on that programme, you're now putting to practice as a co-leader on the new one.
Yes, we're sharing our knowledge.
We're sharing the knowledge and the love all around the UK. Brilliant. So Charlotte, I think we've got a little treat for everybody.
Yeah, this is a video of our evaluation, but when you watch it, you might end up seeing me doing a run-off, because I hate watching myself back.
Oh, no, you're very good on it. So this is an evaluation video we put together at the end of our Transform Leadership National programme, and you'll see some faces who are in the room today on the screen. Take it away.
I am a calm and direct leader that serves other people.
I am a situational leader, which means I can change and adapt to my environment.
I would say that I am collaborative with those in the creative process, but also recognise people's individual strengths and difficulties.
The kind of leader I am is very calm. I'm just trying to relax and listen.
I am quiet and thoughtful, collaborative and considerate.
The biggest thing that I've learned in leadership was leading together is better than leading on your own.
You have to find your right style for you.
I never thought before that I could be a leader, and the idea that a leadership would be something I could do was really revolutionary for me.
So I did an Easy Read presentation in the Lowry's Access Steering Group, and now the Lowry is trying to make everything Easy Read so people understand like what Easy Read is and where they're going.
I have achieved the presentation at the Learning Disability Partner board meetings, and this setting up the steering group, the leadership work at Hubble.
I thought, yes, you're doing it, mate. You're directing, you're doing it.
I'm on the advisory board, getting people together and to hear their ideas.
I can positively represent my organisation and have an impact on their reputation.
I bring a level of intensity to the process and a level of energy that makes people want to make stuff too.
Changed the decision making in Square Pegs, and now there's a clear and more efficient feedback loop from the participants to the trustees.
When I started previously 3 years ago, I was volunteering. I was at the very bottom, and then 3 years later, I grew and grew and grew. And I'm not the same person as I was 3 years ago. I'm now a different person.
I enjoyed it, and all the people were so kind and friendly, and I like doing all the games and like talking to people what my future's going to be.
It's made me be who I now am.
Ultimately, like, creativity doesn't feel as complex as it did before.
I feel as a leader, I don't have to ask permission anymore. I can take initiative and put boundaries and keep them.
Come to us and we'll tell you what we want.
The change can begin with us. We disabled people, we have a special capacity to think out of the box.
It's important to get paid for my work because I am a professional. I'm an artist.
Use less words. Maybe hand out some easy reads.
Just remember, just because people have got different disabilities, you shouldn't just think that they can't do the same job as people with non-disabilities.
We are conscientious and honest, and we can really get excited about a task if we're given creative freedom and reasonable adjustment.
You are missing a trick, and if you don't do it, someone else is going to get in there. They're going to do it before you, and you're going to miss out, and you're going to be like,
Because you never know, do you?
So we give everyone a massive round of applause. Brilliant. Thank you to everyone who contributed to that incredible video. So Charlotte, do you want to say a little bit more about the impact that the Transform Leadership Programme has had on your work?
So everyone will have their different own impacts on how it affected, how it actually infected them on their work, but the way I look at things now is like completely different. So if I say like Coronation Street, like for one scene, I look at how the lighting is, what the characters are and how they're talking between each other, what the clothing are like and what the setting is like.
So you can't relax on the sofa anymore. You have to analyse every single scene that's happening in Coronation Street.
Not probably all of it, but like it gives you an idea of like what you want your performances to look like.
Exactly. So really kind of thinking about your co-directing and how to stage a performance right from the very beginning to realization as well. And there was a brilliant moment, Charlotte, as well, you know, when you went down to the residency in London where you got to work with actors and direct them too.
Yeah. So we got to work with like 2 actors, which was really good. We had like all different scripts what we looked at, and then we got split into like 4 groups, and then each of us like chose which one we wanted, and then we got to like direct the 2 actors in how we want them to like say something, or like how we want their like bodies and arms and legs to like work.
Yeah, that was really good. So it was mainly an online program, but we had 4 residencies. So 2 of the strands, both strands had 2 residencies, each in London and Nottingham, and it was really great for all of us to come together and kind of be in person and see we're not just floating heads in a screen. Brilliant, thank you so much. We have the next slide, please. So, Charlie, our next slide, pay and benefits.
Oh gosh, here we go.
So, being a freelance artist, Charlene. Yeah, tell us a little bit about how that is to get paid work as a freelance artist in the performing arts.
Yes, so that means I am a freelance artist, and you know it can be so difficult and very hard to understand, and there's so many obstacles as well along that as well, and just and even with normal benefits, it's clearly not enough. And we need more. Yeah.
So multiple barriers to achieving, professional paid work. And as part of this program was to help to, kind of really unpick all of those issues and support and advocate and train other organizations to kind of find useful ways through that whole process. Can anyone help us with that today, do you think?
Oh, yes, we do. Yes, so would like to bring up Patrick, and he will definitely have some answers about this.
Brilliant. Here we go.
Thank you. I have no answers, but I can just talk about what I've done in the past, and that's what we'll talk about today. So first thing I'm going to say is the next few minutes is going to get a bit wordy. There'll be a lot of words on the screen, and I'll be saying a lot of things about numbers and words and different rules around benefits. Please don't worry if you don't follow it. You don't have to, okay? We're going to have these slides online afterwards from our website, and we're going to have this recording online afterwards, so you can always check back. But remember as well that for some people, this will be really useful and relevant. For other people, it might not be. If it's not relevant for you, don't worry. You can always ask somebody else for support if you don't fully understand it, if you are going through a process of trying to get paid while you're on benefits. So with that in mind, here's a few of the things that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to look at the context of what we're talking about. So I'm not talking about all benefits or all types of payment. There'll be specific context. I'm going to talk about some of the prep that you might want to do if you are an organization that is maybe supporting learning disabled or autistic people to start doing some work. Or if you're a disabled person yourself and you're beginning to work for the first time, just some of the top line things that you might want to think about to prepare for that. And then we're going to look at some of the rules. And then there'll be a few minutes at the end for questions. As I said at the start, if you want to write questions in the chat online on the live stream, you're welcome to leave your email address and we'll try and email you if we don't get to your question. So first off, to talk about the context of what we're talking about today. I suppose this will be quite specific. If somebody is disabled and has a full-time job, then that's not really the conversation we're having here. What we're mostly talking about, and what our experience in Access Areas mostly is working with people who usually don't work because their access needs block them from work, but they might do a bit of work. If they're supported in work, they might be able to do some work. So some of the examples you've seen today, for example, Charlene works with the board, Adam leads workshops, but he still doesn't work full time. And this might be most relevant for people who don't have a full-time job and still need those benefits. So still need to stay on the benefits and keep their benefits while working a little bit. So the first thing to say is that even if people don't normally work, with the right support, they might be able to do some work. But the issue that a lot of people have is that they're scared this might affect their benefits. And if it's unstable work, they might not want to do it. So for example, if you're an actor, it's quite unstable. A lot of actors who are on benefits, who are disabled, are scared of taking up paid work because then they might lose their benefits and they lose their livelihood from that. But if we know what's allowed, we can help people to work. So this will give you some idea of some of the guidelines to help people do some work while on benefits. So first off, what to prep. The first thing to say, if you're an organization supporting someone or if you're a disabled person yourself, is understand the different benefits. There are a few different kinds. Some of them are not relevant to the conversation around work. Some are. So we're going to look at what they are in a bit. If you're supporting a person, in our case, it's usually supporting artists, know which benefits the artists are on. Simple question, but that can be an easy thing. Before you start the process, find out what they're on. Are they on universal credit? Are they on PIP, etc.? Specifically relevant for a lot of learning disabled people is some people have a legal guardian. It might be their parent, it might be somebody else. If you're supporting a person, know who that person's legal guardian is. Make sure you involve them in the conversation. They might need to sign off any kind of decisions, any support you do, and they can usually be quite helpful as well. This one's really important in terms of prep. Agree a payment process with the artist or with the person you're supporting. Now, the reason I'm talking about this, and we'll get into it a bit later, is because let's say some organization is working with somebody who doesn't use written text. They might say, oh, that's fine, we'll support you to make an invoice. And the organization, let's say Access Areas, makes an invoice on behalf of that person and then pays that person what they're owed. There can be a risk with that if they just pay that money into the bank without having a conversation first, because depending on the date when that is paid, it might affect their benefits. We'll talk about this a bit later again, but for example, if somebody is on employment support allowance, they might only be able to earn a certain amount in 1 month. If you pay them twice in that month, it might risk their benefits. So agree a payment schedule in advance, make sure everybody's on board. Maybe if they do a bit of work with you regularly, maybe they get paid in the first of the month every month. But just agree that in advance, have that conversation and make sure the artist or the person you're supporting is empowered to say, actually, this is how I want to get paid. Thank you. And then the last bit is to know where to go for information. I've not done any training program in this. I've just Googled things. So the gov.uk website is actually quite helpful if you can bear it. But also look for organizations in your area. Email us. We'll try to help if we can. We don't have all the answers. But I guess the reason I put this up here is because it can be very easy when you start this process to go, this is too complicated. I don't want to mess this up. If I mess this up, somebody might lose their benefits. I'm just not going to go forward with it. Actually, there's a lot of information out there. A lot of us are trying and sometimes failing to do this, but a lot of us are trying. So go and ask around, look online, persevere. I would encourage you to. So that's the 5 bits of prep that I would think about. The next bit are the rules. What do we need to know? So I'm going to be talking about a very limited amount of rules here, if that's okay. I'm going to be talking about universal credit. I'm going to be talking about employment support allowance. I'm not going to be talking about disability living allowance. Every time I click that line, Helen laughs. It's great. I'm not going to be talking about disability living allowance, and I am not going to be talking about PIP. Unfortunately, it is not my area of expertise. I know there's a lot of questions around PIP at the moment. That's not what this conversation is about. But universal credit and employment support allowance are particularly relevant when somebody is doing work. They're work-related benefits. So that's what we're talking about today. Okay, so first rule. If a person is disabled and they have a limited capacity for work, they can't do very much work because of their access needs, you can still work a certain amount without affecting your benefits. So to go over that again, if you're disabled, and usually people have a doctor's note saying they have a limited capacity for work, so they can only work a certain amount, it doesn't mean you can't work at all. You can do a certain amount of work and it won't affect your benefits. We'll look through what that is now. First off, we'll look at universal credit. There are different rules for universal credit and employment support allowance. So first we're going to look at universal credit. This is a bit where it's going to get wordy again. If you need to tune out, that's absolutely fine. The slides will be on later. I won't take offense. So first off, there is no limit to how many hours you can work if you're on universal credit. Okay, there sometimes is with employment support allowance. Universal credit, there is no limit to how many hours you work. There is a limit to how much you can earn, but you can earn a certain amount before it affects your universal credit if you're responsible for a child or a young person. This is from DWP website. Or if you're disabled or have a health condition. So if you're disabled, you can work a certain amount before it affects the amount of money you get from universal credit. Here's some of the numbers. So there's two kind of levels. If you get help with housing costs, so if you get housing benefits as part of your universal credit, you can earn up to £404 a month before you lose any payments from universal credit. If you don't get help with housing costs, you can earn up to £673 a month before it makes any difference to the payments you get. The obvious big thing to say, the big caveat, these numbers are on gov.uk right now. They might change. Please look online. Don't say, well, Patrick told me I could earn this much, and then go into it. Just check it online. They do change. And they'll probably change again in April, I think. So with that in mind, so let's say you are doing some work then and you're on universal credit. For every £1 that you earn over the work allowance, so if that's either £404 or £673, depending if you get housing, your universal credit payment reduces by 55p. So if you earned £674 in a month, your universal credit payment would be 55p less. And then every pound you earn above that, it's 55p less. So it's a sliding scale. The more you earn, the less payment you'll get from universal credit. If it does go down in 1 month, it will automatically go back to normal the next month if you earn less than the work allowance. So let's say Charlene has booked a job with the BBC 1 month, and she gets paid a nice pay. Maybe she gets paid £1,000 in a month, right? Sorry, Charlene, I'm using you as an example.
That's all right.
Nice. So 1 month her universal credit is going to go down, but the next month as an actor, she actually doesn't have any work. That's okay. Her universal credit will pop right back to normal. If the amount that you get paid reduces to 0, so let's say you earn so much that it's taken 55p to the amount that you actually get from universal credit is 0. If it reduces to 0 and it stays at 0 for 6 months, then they'll close your account. And then you would have to reapply for universal credit. That's not a problem because you can still reapply. Where this is relevant, if a theatre company is offering a job to a learning disabled actor, for example, who has been on benefits, and that job means that they'll earn decent money and maybe it's touring for 6 months or a year, that's great. That person will not get benefits payment in that time, but they'll be getting their wages. But you might want to be ready as that organisation when that tour is coming to an end to support that person to reapply for universal credit. So that's a little moment that you can think, rather than thinking 3 months after the tour ends, oh gosh, I don't know if their benefits came back. Just think ahead, support them to go back on, make an application, talk to their legal guardians in advance if you need to, so that their benefits, once the tour ends, will pop back up to normal. The other thing with universal credit that's really useful is that it has a portal. It has an online portal that the person can access. Use it. You must put your earnings on the portal every month. You do have to do that. And it's really helpful if you do, because then DWP track what you're doing. There's no problem. They won't question the earnings. If you don't use the portal, it might raise a red flag for them and it might cause some problems. And on the portal, they have a journal where you can ask questions. So you can ask a real human person questions. You can write them in the chat. And actually, I found them quite responsive. They've given us some help before. So if somebody has a kind of an unusual situation about earning a certain amount of money in 1 month, not earning the next month, we've asked them questions and they've kind of smoothed the waters for it. So universal credit can be a bit more flexible, which is useful. It's not perfect, but the flexibility is useful. That's universal credit. I'm going to move on now to employment support allowance. So employment support allowance is the old system, so it's a bit less flexible, a bit like me. If you were disabled and you're supported in work by a charity, you can do what's called supported permitted work. So I'll go over that again. If you're disabled and you are supported in work to do your job, you can do supported permitted work. I'm going to keep going and I'll go through all this again. If you want to do supported permitted work, you need to submit a supported permitted work form, a PW1 form. If anybody's familiar with the PW1 form, it's the same form. You just have to fill out the supported permitted work bit on it. It's the same as the permitted work form. Fill that out, submit it to the job centre. And if you do that, this means that you can earn up to £183.50 per week and still get your normal amount of money from ESA, from Employment Support Allowance. Universal Credit uses monthly, ESA uses weekly. But yeah, you can get up to £183.50 per week. If you earn more than this, even £1 more, you might lose your benefits. So there is a hard line there. Universal Credit tapers off. With ESA is a hard line if you earn more than that per week. This is interesting. There's no limit to the amount of hours you can work under supported permitted work. Permitted work there is, if you're not supported in your job, there's a limit of 16 hours a week. But if it's supported, if you're supported by a charity or an organisation, doesn't need to be a registered charity, an organisation whose remit it is to support disabled people into work, like Access Areas, if they're supporting you in your job, there's no limit to the number of hours you can do. It doesn't really matter, to be honest, because there's still a limit to the amount that you can earn. So yeah, just to go back over that, I think what's important and specific about learning disabled artists' experience in this is the supported bit. There's a certain amount you can earn. You can still get your benefits if you earn under that. There is more flexibility if you make it really clear that you only do this job because you're supported to do the job. Okay? I'll come back more to that later. In fact, I'll come back to it right now. So this is about limited capacity for work. So this is a term that means, as I mentioned before, you can only do a certain amount of work because of your access needs. And it's usually something that's a bit medicalized. Usually you'll have a note from your doctor that has the limited capacity for work box ticked saying that this person can only do a certain amount of work. So that means a lot of people will get a higher level of payment from Universal Credit or from Employment Support Allowance. And that's really important. People depend on that payment. So it's important that that's protected. So if you cannot usually work because of access requirements, you might get that higher level of payment. So this is just some advice, it's not rules, but if you do start some supported work, so you can still do all the work we talked about. If you do start some of that, you should get a doctor's note saying that you have limited capacity for work. You should try and get a letter from an employer, somebody like Access Areas or whoever's employing you, confirming that the work is only possible because it is supported. And then you give these to the job centre. The reason for this is that what might happen is somebody has got registered as having limited capacity for work. They've not done very much work, let's say. Then they start working and they start doing a bit of work. And then somebody, some clever person at the job centre goes, oh, great, they must not have a limited capacity for work anymore. I'll put them on the lower level of benefits and I won't ask any questions because I'm busy. So you want to preempt that. You want to get ahead of that. And that's where it becomes important when you talk about the work being supported, that I do still have a limited capacity for work, you might say. I can only do my job because this charity or company is supporting me to do it. And then you can still, you are still entitled to the higher level of benefits and you can argue that. And we have found, again, not foolproof, we have found that going to the job centre with that doctor's note, with that letter from the employer, it usually works. And then the benefits get put back to the higher level. Okay, and then you should keep your high level of benefits payments. That is our guide to benefits and payments. There are some open mouths in the audience. Ask us questions.
Cool, blimey. Oh, that was a lot, wasn't that, Charlotte? Oh,
yeah, I think the steam's coming out my ears.
Oh, I just don't know how you do it, Patrick. I really don't.
So just before break, we're going to ask if anyone in the room has got 2 questions, and then we're going to go over to the online for 2 questions. So has anyone got a question, to put your hand up? We got a rolling mic.
Yeah, I had a problem at the job centre, and I just want to say, why do they treat us like subjects rather than people? I mean, you know, I went to the job centre and this woman kept going, go on the computer, go and find a job, blah, blah, blah. Why do they act like that? Why can't they talk to people like human beings? I just don't understand it.
Yeah, I don't think that's the question that any of us, I think we all agree with you. Sometimes that does happen. The advice I'd give you is talk to people and get support. There's people around that will support with that. And maybe bring someone to the job centre with you as well to support, so it can be useful.
Yeah.
Do you mind if I ask a question? I know that Access All Areas offers training. Isn't there a really good argument that the people at these centres where people are being judged should have some?
Yes.
Is that even a question?
Oh, hiya. I just wondered that we've had times where we've had people work and say from one organisation said they were going to pay them £2,000 over that month. They then come back with a payment plan saying that they were willing to split that payment. So they'd be paying £200 for 5 months, even though the work could only be for 1 month. Is that okay for me to be like, yeah, sound, or are we, is that naughty?
All right. It's a really good question. The short answer is yes, that should be fine. There's longer bits. The longer answer. My advice with this is to make sure that that person doesn't go over the annual earnings threshold for which we'll actually look at a bit later, but the annual earnings threshold for kind of the cutoff point for the benefits. And then there's lots of nuance around that. I think if somebody is working in a very unstable career where they earn a lot in 1 month and not very much the next month, you can absolutely make an argument to the job centre that, look, to support this person with managing their finances, they would like to spread out the payments in this way. We've done that in the past, and the way we've done it is drafted a letter, taken it to the job centre and said, this is what we're doing, this is why. Can you agree this? Can you say that it's okay? Give us something in writing, whether it's an email or the letter or whatever else, and then that covers you, right? I understand that that's a fair amount of admin, but we've done it in the past that, you know, somebody has a job centre appointment coming up and we put something down on paper and we say, this is what we're doing. Can you say that it's okay? I would say you need to argue it, right? You need to make it really clear that it's very unlikely in the arts that somebody will now earn £2,000 a month going forward. The reason we're doing this is because the arts is up and down and everything else. So I think if you argue that, if you get it in writing from the job centre, it's absolutely, my understanding is it's fully within the letter of the law. It's not naughty. I think if you do just do it and not really tell anyone about it, it might raise flags, it might raise questions. The last thing to consider on that, if it is a once-off, and if the person is on universal credit, they might be better off to earn all that money in the 1 month and then their benefits pops back up the next month. Yeah, you know what I mean? But otherwise, spreading out benefits, it should be absolutely okay.
Yeah. It's just, it's hot, yeah.
And sorry, the last thing, and then if you want to have a follow-up question, maybe that's fine. The last thing is, I don't think those rules would apply if somebody's on payroll. If somebody's on payroll, you need to pay them the month they earn the money. If they're self-employed, they can agree a payment schedule with you. It must come from that person asking for the payments to be a certain way, though.
Oh, thank you.
Do you have a follow-up? Okay.
One more, yeah.
I was just gonna ask, in terms of like payment plans and stuff like that, what do you do from like an organizational perspective to mitigate like kind of end of financial years and obviously money that was in 1 year and now he's being paid over and into the next financial year. It's March now, so it's probably on a lot of people's radars in terms of end of financial year.
Yeah, I like this is high level questioning. I like it. So I will go back to the point of if somebody has, let's say, in 1 year earned £10,000, and you get to the end of the financial year and you've been spreading out payments, it's like, actually, you know what, you have earned over the limit, then you really should have a conversation with them and say, we're going to need to pay you this money. And then they might have to come off benefits for a little bit and go back on. That is my first bit of advice. I do think every person has an individual case and will have an individual experience. And if it's very likely that they just did do a slightly bigger job in the last few months of the financial year, but they really won't work for the months following, again, you can make that argument to the job centre, you know what I mean, and do the spread out the payments. I'm thinking through conversations with our auditors. If there is clear written if there's a clear written request from the self-employed person in question that they want you to pay them in this manner, that's their choice, right? You can do that. As far as I'm aware, you can do that. So I think there's never been a problem for us from an audit point of view, as long as we have that evidence to spread those payments out. And then from an organizational administration point of view, we just keep a tracker, and every month, we pay off the oldest invoice, as it were, and we kind of keep a track of how much somebody is owed and pay it off as they go. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay then, hello people online. Now we're going to take some questions from online. Megan, have you got any questions?
Yeah, there's a few, thank you. So Drake Music has asked, is it likely that people would be on both employment support allowance and universal credit, or is it one or the other?
These are all for me, I'm so sorry. Hello, Drake Music. I believe it is one or the other, and the only reason I'm hesitating is because I know the government is really actively transitioning people from employment support allowance to universal credit now, and it's been happening for a while. So I don't know if there'd be ever a situation where there might be some overlap. But no, universal credit is a new system that is replacing employment support allowance, is my understanding. I don't work for the government, so I might be wrong, but I'm quite sure on that.
Cool, thank you. Charlotte Gowan has asked, they run a short paid placement scheme, which does have the opportunity for an access support worker to be with participants during shifts. Would this be something someone with limited capacity to work would get involved with, or does it have to be a specific charity supporting them?
Could you ask me one more time, please, Megan?
Yeah, definitely. So for a short paid placement scheme that's got the opportunity for an access support worker to be with people, would this be something someone with limited capacity to work would get involved with, or does it have to be specific charity supporting?
I think I understand the question. Thanks, Charlotte. Yes, I think that should be absolutely fine. You do not need to be a charity to support somebody in work. It's easier to make it clear that to argue that you are there to support that person. You just need to make the argument and make the case that that person is doing the job because they are supported. So it's easier to argue it if you're a charity, but you can be a community organization, you could be a theater, you could be any organization. You don't need to be a registered charity. Yeah. Right.
Cool, thanks. Lily Norton says, thank you very much. It was a very clear explanation. Are there any potential implications from proposed upcoming benefit changes?
The question. Thanks, Lily. Nobody knows. Well, maybe some people know. My response to that, I suppose, would be, I have no doubt the rules will change. Something will change in the rules. Probably the approach won't change very much. So thinking back over the slides and everything else, doing the preparation, understanding who needs to be in the conversation, understanding the rules, understanding how much somebody can earn, all of those will still be valid. I very much doubt any of this stuff will disappear. I think more people will go onto universal credit, which honestly, while not perfect, is more flexible. It may become more important to have the evidence, because I think people will be looking at cost-cutting measures. Job centres will be looking at cost-cutting measures. I'm even finding in the last year, we have to say, get that doctor's note and that letter from the employer. We have to do that more often, just to say, no, really, this person does only work because their supporter didn't work. So I think the general approach, I would still take the same approach. Argue your case, know the rules, and once you're working within the rules, you know, there is a certain amount that people are allowed to work while they're getting benefits. Just because that's a bit inaccessible, it doesn't mean it shouldn't apply to learning disabled people. So the approach would be similar. Yeah. Do you want to go back to a question in the room? I think we still have time. There's one over here, Grace. Oh, sorry.
Thanks. In my experience, it's not disabled people themselves that are terrified of the benefits getting stopped. It's their families and their support workers, especially those people whose benefits are linked to their tenancies and their support within their tenancies. I suppose my question is, practically, how do you persuade those families and those support workers that it's worth that risk or that time to enable that person to try work?
Yeah, that's a very familiar thought. I'm not going to stand here and say this is how to persuade someone, nor should you persuade someone. Of course, there'll be certain cases where people just don't want to take that risk. Ultimately, at that moment, we'll step back and say it's your choice. And if it's not their choice, in that case, I understand that, sorry. In that case, we will do everything we can to make sure the person in question's wishes are met. But to bring people along with you, I suppose, is really useful. So when we have had to take an approach of guiding people through who are not comfortable with this, we use the facts as much as possible. Don't just take this presentation, get this information from the government, from the gov.uk website, print it out, have a meeting, sit down with those people and say, look, these are the guidelines. I understand you're worried about it, but these are the rules. Now let's get a meeting with your job centre and get them to say, in writing ideally, that if you follow these rules, if it stays within these guidelines, nothing will change with your benefits. So that's the bit that I suppose lets me be a bit relieved about it all, that I can go, okay, look, I think this is correct, right? I'm just Googling it. I'm really, really sure it's correct because it's worked for 12 years, but I'm still going to go to the job centre and get them to tell me that it's correct. Again, it's a process. It doesn't usually happen with one conversation, but I think use the facts, reassure people, and offer to go, if you have the capacity as an organisation, offer for somebody to go with the family to the job centre with those letters printed out, see the evidence, and then see if the job centre will give you that writing. And look, sometimes it doesn't work, unfortunately, that's the world we're in, but I suppose that's what I do in that situation. Online question, or Nick? Yeah, there's time for a few more questions. If Megan, go for it.
Yeah. Amy Smith says, if someone works a lot for you over, say, 6 weeks, is there any limit to the pace of payment? They've assumed it's fine to spread payments over a long period of time to make sure benefits aren't affected.
Thanks, Amy. That is my assumption as well. You can spread it out. Again, my guidance will be that if somebody is getting paid more than the kind of annual limit, then you're kind of kind of missing the point, right? If somebody is earning relatively a decent amount of money, they probably should come off benefits. But if it's an unstable job and you're spreading it out over a long period, again, that has not been an issue for us as long as we get that letter from their job centre saying this is okay to do. We understand that you work as an actor, you work and your work's unstable. This is why you want to spread it out. So I think I can't give you a yes or no answer of whether there's a limit or not, because it will be an individual person's case, an individual decision by a job centre advisor. But in theory, there's no reason why that shouldn't be possible. And I will go so far as to say we do use that system carefully, but we do use that system so that people who are in kind of unstable up and down freelance work in the arts, a lot of our artists want to get regular payments, want to spread it out. So it's not, it's easier to manage. Thinking about it in the other direction, this is an argument that I've used before with the job centre as well. If somebody does do a big acting job for 3 weeks in a film and gets paid £6,000 or whatever that is, that itself can be very overwhelming and can be very anxiety inducing, getting all that money at once. So the argument we often make is, look, this person wants to spread it out to manage their anxiety over money because they're not used to handling this money. And, the advisors are humans and they do understand usually. So no hard and fast rules. Do try this system. Talk to the job centre. They will give you a yes or no, I would say.
Let's do one last question.
One last question. Maybe in the...
Thank you. You mentioned supported permitted work.
Yes.
Are there any criteria for what that support is, or any limitations to the support that can be seen to be on offer?
That's a good question. I am not aware of that. I think I'm going to use the word semantic. I think you just have to, I think that the limitation is, in my understanding, that without this support, the person could not work. I think that's what they're getting at. You know what I mean? So it doesn't mean that you have to have a support worker for 100% of the time. It just means that this organization or whoever you're working for is specifically putting things in place that mean you can work a certain amount. And just to say, I suppose, again, the reasoning for that is if you didn't need that support, in theory, you wouldn't have a limited capacity for work because you would be able to work unsupported, and therefore your benefits might drop. Does that make sense? No.
Thank you for the questions. Now there's going to be a 20-minute break and you'll be back at 3:30. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah. Hey. Hello. Welcome back.
Have we all recharged our batteries?
Yeah. Ah, that's good. That's good.
Brilliant. So we are now going to be talking about co-leadership. And Charlotte, this has been a big part of the Transform Leadership Programme and a big part of the work that we do at Axel Areas to make our work, our creative programmes a lot more accessible. So do you want to tell us a little bit about your work with Yes Drama and your work here at the Lowry?
So I worked at the Lowry on Yes Drama project.
Woo, we got some cheers in the audience.
And they are a group what work on a Thursday, and they are some who are quiet and then some who are kind of like in the middle. So some are loud and some are like not loud. And they are a range of all different disabilities, and they got teached on drama skills on how to use them in the future if they want to get a paid job or a volunteer job. And I helped them to direct their first scene on underwater and music festival it was.
And you co-led those workshops?
Yeah, I co-led with a woman called Amy.
Is Amy here today?
No.
Oh, okay. There we go. I'm going to say give a shout out to Amy. And that was a placement that you ran at the Lowry as part of the Transform Leadership Programme.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. Great. So are we going to hear from somebody else a bit more about co-leadership? Who else is coming up?
Oh, yes. We would like for Paul Christian to come up on stage. Woo!
Brilliant. So, Paul, co-leadership. What's it all about? So tell us, Paul, a bit more about co-leadership in terms of, why is it important?
Well, that's a good question. It's like a clash of ideas, and it's not just working with yourself. It's working with other people, a gel, if you will.
So, so it's not really about kind of just splitting one person in half. We kind of bring different experiences.
Bring different elements, and if we forgotten something, or if we don't think of a certain thing, then they can bring that to the table.
Brilliant. So bringing kind of lived experience to the project as well. Can we get the next slide, please? Thank you. So the co-leadership is different to having someone who's supporting you, isn't it? We're going to talk a bit about support in a moment. What else do you think is the value of having two people co-leading either workshops or on the board as well? What else do you think might be helpful in terms of having two for the price of one, basically?
Two heads for the price of one. It helps you to remember things that you may not have thought of.
Exactly. So different perspectives and adding different perspectives into a project or into a leadership kind of decision as well. Great. So what about sort of inspiring other disabled people? Why do you think co-leadership is important for other disabled people?
Well, basically, you are basically a role model for that person for them to look up to you as guidance, so they can also one day be role models themselves.
Exactly. Thanks, Paul. And you definitely have inspired a lot of people on the Transform Leadership Programme. Definitely in the evaluation that we ran on at the end of the programme, everyone looked up to you, Paul, and really kind of inspired that you were able to kind of set the path forward for everybody else to follow. So
you make me blush.
I know, Paul. That's my job. Okay. So, Paul, give us a few examples then of co-leadership in action. So, you're co-leading lots of the online sessions with me.
Yeah, and that entails workshops to small goals, which basically, for example, making a cup of tea. Say if someone does know how to make a cup of tea, we take it step by step, but a smart goal would be much more of lengthy process.
Exactly. So we were kind of looking at small wins and kind of the stages that people might get to get to a kind of what other people might see as kind of a huge win.
Yeah.
And you were offering your expertise in terms of your perspective on, what does kind of a sizable goal mean to kind of success really and achievement.
Yeah.
And what else did we kind of get taught on this course?
We also got taught how different people and different leaders have different leadership styles.
And what was your style, Paul?
My leadership styles is I'm quiet, I'm very observant, I'm very philosophical as well.
Definitely. So you were kind of bringing your kind of experience and really challenging what a leader is and kind of really inspiring people to say, we can all be leaders, but our different kind of leadership style might not look like the traditional leadership style that you might see in the world.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And what else did we look at on the programme?
We also looked at presentation skills, about how to present yourself, but in a presentation styles, and how and that entails how what you as a leader can bring to your acting company.
Exactly, exactly. So everybody got to tell their own story about their own companies, about their own beliefs, their own values, things they want to change in their communities, within the arts industry as well, and present them to each other and give each other feedback.
Yeah.
And it was some very powerful presentations that we created together.
Yeah, yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. Thank you. So we've got some top tips, if we can bring them up, please. Thank you. Here we go. Some top tips, Paul. I'm going to read them out, and it'd be really great to get your philosophical brain on all of them. Inspire the UK. Get going. There we go. Brilliant. All right. So the first one, Paul, we put together is play to your strengths. What does that mean?
It means sing your own tune. You know. I mean, it's not. Don't be like fake. You know. Be authentic. That's what we like teach, and that's what we encourage, to be authentic yourself.
That's exactly it, isn't it? And that's why we're kind of really challenging what leadership actually means, in terms of not trying to pretend to be something that you're not, but to really find your values and kind of your beliefs and your personality, and to bring them forward into the project that you might be running. Brilliant. So number 2 is be prepared to change. It's kind of a little bit for me and for all the other co-leaders at Axel Areas and across the country as well, is that, you know, often we kind of take a lot of space, and really it's kind of us to think about how we, kind of make change and bring in participants, bring in artists, bring in people with lived experience, bringing in different perspectives. And to kind of be be open to that change as well. Mm-hmm. And the third one, Paul, is taking a step back. So once we've made that change, we've taken a step back.
To really observe our work and in progress in life and living colour. We let them be the leaders who they want to be, and not for us just like give a shove. You know.
Exactly. So just allow that time and for people to flourish, and to find their own voice in that as well. So the fourth one, Paul, is about planning time. So not only you've been co-leading on the Transform Leadership Programme, but you're also a co-deputy chair on the board, and you sit on the board of Axel Areas with Charlene. And so we've done lots of things over the years to really kind of think about access and supporting people's access needs on the board. Do you want to give us some examples about planning time and how we've been able to do that?
And anyone who's in a leadership status, we have like prep times that's before the actual meeting itself, just to go through like what's gonna be in the meeting, just a heads up basically. And we also do a agenda, and that's also with mental Heather, who's sitting up there.
Exactly. So we have planning sessions, prep times, go through the director's report, and then create the agenda together, and make it easy read, so we kind of can all follow it together. And then for you and Charlene to be able to co-lead, know how long you've got for each section, what kind of questions we need to ask in the board. Brilliant. So the next one, Paul, you talked about it a moment ago, is being open to different leadership styles. Do you want to say a bit more about that?
Well, some may know, and some may not have known, but my leadership metaphor is a tree, and that for me resembles like who I am. I'm not only just nice and quiet, but I'm philosophical with knowledge, and my knowledge is the branches, and the branches also it's knowledge that I can give to people on their leadership journey.
Brilliant. And your roots go deep, Paul, as well. We talked about that too. Definitely an oak tree there, Paul. Yeah, very good. Great. So being open to leadership styles, and that everyone has a different approach and different perspectives, and to acknowledge and give time and space for that too. And the last one is valuing lived experience, Paul. Anything you'd like to offer the audience?
We all have experience, but some of us have lived experience, and that can really shine through to what you're trying to get out to other people, because you can draw on them, like their feelings and emotions as well, because you've lived it yourself.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. That was brilliant. Thank you so much. Great. Paul, a round of applause. Thank you. So I'm going to pass back over to Charlotte and Charlene.
Now we're going to talk about creative support.
All right. Hello again, Charlene.
Hello again. Hello. We're back again.
We're back again. So creative support, in the same way that co-leadership is one of the things that makes all of this work and can make work accessible, creative support is another one. How would you describe creative support, Charlene?
I would say, to make it a lot easier is to do like a metaphor. So I think creative support is kind of like an anchor. So it's like they're just like steering us in the direction that we want to go and help us along the way, the things that we struggle on, to make our work so much easier and a really impact of the work that we do. And, and also, for me and Paul, we've got also Access has creative support, but we've also got mentors as well. As Paul mentioned earlier, Heather is our mentor. Yeah. But yeah, I just like, without that support, I don't think, we would be on this stage now talking in front of you all right now. And yeah, it's like, it makes us stronger and, more powerful as well for us, what we want to do.
Thanks, Charlene. Yeah. Can we have the next slide, please? So, yeah, as Charlene says, it's about being able to do your best work and having the support to do that, and having really strong relationships with the person with the person that's being supported and the person that's doing the supporting. That needs to be a really strong relationship, and it's a really specific and really skilled job. We're going to hear a little bit more about it. Charlotte, on transforming leadership, you have had some creative support. You've been working with a creative support worker.
Where is she then?
I don't know.
Welcome to the stage, John.
Hey.
Hi everyone, I'm Georgia. I'm Charlotte and Amy's creative support through Transforming Leadership, and I'm a lead artist at DIY Theatre. I'm a short white woman with dark brown hair in a ponytail, a red DIY Theatre company shirt, a black trousers and black and white Converse.
So how does it work with you two? How do you work together?
So Georgia helped me to remember if I had to bring any objects. She also written down the notes so I could remind myself at a later time. And also she helped me to get to Nottingham because I didn't have a clue where it was.
Yeah, so a lot of what I do is practical, it's note-taking, it's helping with tech, sending reminders on email, booking transport, just anything that means that Charlotte can have your full focus on the learning and the leading that they're doing on the programme. And then also when Amy was on her work placement at the Lowry, I could be her support. We did a lot of work looking at making policies easy read. So it was really important to be able to spend time together dissecting the language that was in all those documents. So I could be someone that could support Amy with that. And apart from that, I just get to sit back and watch these guys be amazing.
And Georgia, you said you're a artist at DIY, so you've got your own kind of artistic practice and your own sort of experience. Does that kind of, how does that come into this role? Does it come into this role?
Yes, it definitely does. I think a lot of people who do this kind of work are artists themselves. They've been through similar programs and training programs, and they can remember what it was like to enter new buildings and new spaces. And it means I can come in and say, it's all right to ask that question. It's all right to say, I need things done a little bit differently, and there's no bad questions, basically. And as an artist who facilitates, it's really changed how I work, and it's made me think more about accessibility from lots of different perspectives.
Nice. Thank you, Charlotte and Georgia. So we've got a few more sort of top tips or top things about what creative support is. If we can have the next slide. Thank you. So it's about removing disabling barriers. What does that mean to you, Charlene?
That means that things are like things that we find really difficult and that might really anxious or worry us, and we can't really get or we don't understand. So
yeah, great. And as Georgia said, a lot of the time it is practical tasks. It can be getting somebody to where they need to be. It can be making notes. It could be running out to get somebody lunch so that they can rest properly on their break. But it's not just that. It's not just the practical tasks. It's not just that side of support work. There's also a creative element to it, and there's a sort of supportive kind of energetic element to it as well, isn't there, Charlene? So the next point is about being a calming, supportive and energizing presence. Talk to us about that. Why is that important?
I think it's so important that, a creative state is so energetic because it'll make us feel nice and calm, especially if it's a new place or, we're meeting someone new. Creative support could be there to really make us calm and not anxious and just focus on what we're doing.
Yeah, I think sometimes it's also about sort of seeing where the energy of someone is and kind of matching that or supporting that or holding that. And actually some of the best creative support that I've seen has been people who are able to match that energy and go, okay, we're all over the place today. We're up and down, we're excited. We're jumping up and down. Great. How can we use that in our work? Or do you know what? We're really tired today. So how are we going to work together in this way? That's one of the reasons I think that artists are quite good at this work, because we're people, right? But it's about that kind of unseen working with the energy in the room, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's the thing. The creative support can notice that person, their energy levels and stuff, can go right on it, and yeah.
And on that note is the final point, which is about sometimes being invisible, and like Georgia said, sometimes taking a step back, sometimes not doing much, or sometimes looking like you're not doing much. So sometimes, Charlene, you might have someone who's there as your creative support and it looks like they're not doing much, right?
Yeah.
But it's about that holding that energy and being ready to step in and ready to support as needed. Great. What's next?
Oh, okay. I would like to introduce back the magic, money magic Patrick to come on backstage to talk about access to work.
That was the best introduction I've ever had. One sec. Okay, so access to work. What I'm going to go through here, again, I'm going to apologize in advance. It's going to be a lot of words. So same thing, don't worry if you're not following at all. The slides will be online, the recording will be online, and other people maybe in the room or in an organization you work with might be able to support you with it. And again, if you have questions, put them in the chat, put your email in, we'll try to follow up if we can. One thing to say from the top is that we will be I will be focusing on my experience of access to work from Access All Areas, which mostly is around access to work for learning disabled and autistic people. So there's some things that are specific in that, I think. Okay, first off, context. What is access to work? Access to Work is a grant from DWP. I'll go through this pretty quick because I think a lot of people will know this, but it's a grant from the Department of Work and Pensions. It is a grant for a person, it is not a grant for a company. So Access All Areas does not get access to work money. An individual artist, like Charlene, for example, might get access to work. It is only for support related to work. It will not pay for you to have support outside of working hours. The exception is unless it's maybe travel to work or something like that. But it's only about work. Payment is usually made to either the support worker or it's reimbursed. It's paid back afterwards. So for example, Access All Areas, if we work with an artist who needs a support worker and has access to work, Access All Areas will hire the support worker, pay the support worker, and then we'll claim the money back from access to work. That's so that the artist themselves doesn't have to pay the support worker and claim the money back because it's a complicated process. So in access to work's eyes, in DWP's eyes, Access All Areas kind of acts like an agency for support workers. That's kind of how they see us. And obviously then the big point is the process is not accessible for many people. So if you are an organization working with learning disabled people who might want access to work, be ready to support people. To be honest, it's not just about learning disabled and autistic people. It is really inaccessible. I have worked in finance, in the arts for almost 15 years now. And I still have days where I'm like, what is this? And I just push through. So it is inaccessible, but you know, we're all in this together. There's support out there, keep pushing through. One thing I always say at the start of this as well, is to use Access to Work's words. Some of us will be familiar from this with the benefits process, but in Access All Areas, we use words like creative support. We use empowering words, and we know how amazing people are in work and how much work they can do. In an Access to Work application, we use the words that the Access to Work advisors knows. So instead of creative support, we say support worker, for example. What can Access to Work support? It can give you practical support with work. So you can get a support worker like a creative support. You could get a job coach. What I mean by this is an example that Access to Work gives on their website. If a person is autistic and might need some support to come up with strategies of how to manage the kind of navigating work and the emotions of work, or strategies of how to avoid shutdown, Access to Work might pay for a job coach to work with that person over a series of sessions to help them to come up with some strategies. And that's something a lot of people don't know, and I think it can actually be really impactful. It can give you a job aid. Job aid means a different thing to every Access to Work advisor that I speak to. But what I'm talking about here is that it can be somebody who specifically helps you to do your job. So for example, if somebody has a chronic fatigue syndrome or access needs around fatigue, and on a certain day, maybe they're doing something like I'm doing now, and they need a moment where they need to step out, a job aid could step in for them and cover for them for a certain amount of time. That's maybe a not quite well articulated example, but they can step in and cover the job basically for a certain amount. It can cover BSL interpreter. Just to use an example from today, it will cover a BSL interpreter for a person. Let's remember, it will not cover a BSL interpreter for Access All Areas. That's our responsibility. It could cover something like a note taker. Somebody needs a note taker in meetings. It can also cover accessible equipment. Too fast. So something like a screen reader. Another thing a lot of people don't know, it can cover advice on managing mental health at work. This actually might come from Access to Work itself. They have people who could give advice on managing mental health. But we have also had cases where Access to Work will pay for somebody to go through a course of therapy, for example, specifically if they have a mental health condition that is directly related to work. So if, for example, somebody has a condition around anxiety, that makes it very difficult for them to go to a workplace. Access to Work might pay for mental health support specifically to deal with that issue. This is super useful. It can pay for support at job interviews, and I've added or auditions. So Access to Work say we pay for support at job interviews. Access Lowry says for an actor that means an audition, and that's brilliant because it means that if Charlene, going to keep using you, if Charlene has an audition for the BBC, and she wants some help with the line learning, she doesn't have had to have had the job in order to get creative support to come in and support her with the line learning, support her to prep for the audition, maybe support some anxiety around the audition if somebody has that. So remember that you can use it for auditions or interviews as well. It can pay for travel to work. If you need taxis, for example, because you can't get public transport, it can pay for that. Oh, and that's everything it pays for. There are many other things as well, but these are the kind of top lines. Who can get it? If you are disabled or have a health condition, that means you need support to do your job. If you're 16 or over, if you are employed, because it has to be about work, or if you are self-employed, and we'll look at some rules around this, you have to have a turnover usually of over £6,396. So you have to have a certain amount of self-employed work usually to get access to work. You can get it if you're working and on benefits, but there are rules. A lot of people, including some access to work advisors, go, oh, but this person is on employment support allowance, so they can't get access to work. That's incorrect. You absolutely can. There are just some rules around it. You do not need to supply medical evidence, usually. The only instance that I've consistently had to is with travel. If you need to get a taxi, you usually need a doctor's note to say why. And that's who can get it. So that's the context. That's the kind of general what we're talking about. Now we're going to look at some of the rules. This is Anna Constable, who's an associate artist of Access Lowry, and she knows the rules, I think. Okay. I've been told to point at the PowerPoint sometimes because we're taking B-roll in the room, so it needs to look like I'm explaining something. So I'm going to do this for a bit. Okay, so back for a sec. So if you are self-employed, there are some specific rules around access to work, and it is a little bit harder, maybe harder is the wrong word, a little bit more complicated to get it if you're self-employed than if you're employed or on payroll. Let's look at some of those. So, as I said before, normally you need to earn, you need to have £6,396 of income per year, but this is turnover. If anybody is familiar with self-employed, you might know that sometimes at the end of the year when you're doing your tax returns, you put some expenses in to kind of knock down your income. So it's turnover, not profit, okay? It's the amount of income that you earn. But the lower earnings limit does not apply in your first year of being self-employed. So this is really useful and has been, for a lot of the kind of our experience of supporting our artists to start some work. So for example, on the Transform Leadership program, when somebody started to do some workshops and they were only doing maybe a couple of workshops a month, it's very normal for self-employed people to not suddenly have a business in the first year of their work, and Access to Work understand that. So you can, in your first year, get access to work if you don't meet that. You do need to have a unique taxpayer reference number. They will not proceed with your application if you don't. So my advice is, if you're an organization that's supporting somebody to get access to work, they're just starting to work with you, the turnaround from the point of application for access to work is a long time. At the moment, it's 24 weeks. That means you have some time. Don't wait until the advisor comes back to you to register for self-employed. As soon as you put the access to work application in, support that person to register as self-employed, and they will get a unique taxpayer reference number, a UTR number. Supporting somebody to register for self-employed is relatively straightforward. A lot of people are nervous about it. And it's good to be kind of switched on when you're doing it and not just do it someday, because there are some considerations. It's relatively straightforward. The considerations are, if somebody's on benefits, you might want to have that evidence for the job centre that's, again, that I said earlier, I've got limited capacity for work, I'm just doing a certain amount of work, here's the letter, job centre, please don't take away my benefits. Because if they see that you've registered as self-employed, they might go, oh, this person is working now, we can lower the benefits. It, I think, has happened to me once over the last 12 years, but something to consider. Back to access to work. If in the access to work application, if you're self-employed, normally they will ask for a business plan, a 3-year business plan. They suggest using, I think, the Prince's Trust template. We have almost always gotten around this because they also accept an actor's CV. So if you're an actor, you can just have a CV. You don't need a business plan, and they'll accept that. Most advisors don't know that, but it is in the Access to Work staff guidelines, which I will talk about more. It is my Bible. You can just give an actor's CV. I had to do a business plan for somebody recently. I got the template off Prince's Trust and I filled it out in about 20 minutes. It was the worst business plan that anyone has ever made in their lives, but they just need to see that there's some kind of business plan that means that this is a real job and that, you know, you're not just making it up, I suppose. The whole point of this is to see that the work is real. That's what they want to see. And so sometimes we have used upcoming contracts of work as evidence of future work. So again, for people who are just starting off, they don't have, they've just registered as self-employed, so they just got their unique taxpayer reference number. They don't have a business plan, or they have a very basic one. But we can say, well, look, here is the evidence of the contracts that they're going to do with accessible areas over the next year. Therefore, the work is real. And they'll go, great, that's all we needed to see. We just wanted to know it's real. So this is some of the stuff around self-employed. I think the last, just to flag it again, oh, pointing at the screen, I forgot. Just to flag it again, if somebody is self-employed and is only earning about, let's say, £3,000 a year, they won't get access to work, right? So I think just be aware of that. Keep that in mind, that there is that lower earnings limit. If you're employed, there is no lower earnings limit. So if somebody is, for example, doing a regular workshop program, maybe doing a job like Adam did, co-leading a workshop, and he's doing it once a month for a few hours a month. If you put that person on payroll, then they can get access to work. If they're self-employed, they can't, okay? Now I'm gonna look at access to work and benefits. And this is where there's some crossover. I think that's very relevant to learning disabled people because a lot of learning disabled people are on universal credit or employment support allowance. So first off, consider self-employment and lower earnings limit. As I just said, there is no lower earnings limit for employees on payroll, and there is no lower earnings limit in the first year of self-employment. Where this is relevant is that if somebody is starting work and is worried about losing their benefits, and if you remember from earlier, all the different rules you have to go through to make sure that person is doing supported work, they're only earning a certain amount, then it might not be enough for access to work to give, or for access to work, say you can have an access to work grant if they're self-employed. So do consider it might be better to put them on payroll. And also remember that in the first year, you can say to the advisor, actually, it's the first year, they do not need it. They do not need to meet that lower earnings limit, so it's okay that they're on benefits this year. With universal credit, there are no restrictions to applying. So this is, again, another example of universal credit being more flexible. Access to work advisors will not blink if someone is on universal credit because it's designed that somebody can start working, it will taper down, so that's fine. With employment support allowance, you must have done a PW1 form at the point of application, at the point of speaking to the advisor. So again, when you do the online application initially, make sure you register that person as self-employed or support them to register as self-employed. Make sure you support them to fill out the PW1 form. The real risk with this, because it's taking 24 weeks at the moment or more sometimes, if you get to the point that an advisor finally gets in touch and they say, oh, great, you're self-employed, okay, cool, but they don't have a PW1 form, they don't have permitted work because they can see their kind of portal. It's not ticked, really sorry, we can't progress this. You'll have to apply again. And then you have to go right back to the start again because they will rarely wait for you to go and apply. Now, in that situation, we have successfully argued going, please wait, we're just waiting on the the application, it is in process. We applied 3 months ago. The unique tax reference number is coming. Can you just give us 2 weeks? Can you just give us 2 more weeks? And again, they're humans. Often they do. But just be aware of that. They can close the application and you have to start again. So permitted work form. And then remember to follow the steps on limited capacity to work if that's relevant. Obviously, if somebody doesn't have limited capacity for work, that's absolutely fine. They can get access to work and that's separate. But all of that guidance on having a doctor's note and having a letter from your employer, just be ready to have that proof so that you don't risk that person's benefits by applying for access to work. DWP is all relatively connected. So the person in the job centre who looks after benefits can potentially see if an access to work claim has been made or application has been made, and therefore might say, oh yeah, this person is working now, they don't need the higher level of support. And then the other way, the access to work people can see if somebody's on benefits, so that you need to have the permitted work ticked. That's access to work and benefits. Now, we're going to look at some application tips. This is DJ and Adam in Not Fucking Sorry, which is touring right now. Little plug. Okay, I'm going to look at a few different tips. It's not everything, right? It's just some areas that I thought were useful to flag. We're going to look at some of the prep that's useful. We're going to look at the idea of third-party support and how it's specific for learning disabled people. We're going to look at what's called a support worker record of tasks, which is basically a way of doing a job description for a support worker. And we're going to look at some specific things about what a support worker can get paid, the hourly rate. And we're also going to look at the idea of job aid. Again, I should say, these are tips that are relevant to the work that we do in Access All Areas. So most of this is about working with creative support, which we just talked about. So that's what's in my head when I'm thinking about this. I'm not really talking about tips for travel support, for example. This is about working with a creative support if you're a learning disabled person who wants to get that kind of support. Okay. I think I've pointed enough. I'm going to switch my hands. Right. Okay, prep. Read the Access to Work guidelines online. It sounds obvious. It's relatively accessible. That's a strong statement. You don't have to read it all, but just be aware that it's there. You can refer back to it. I do it a lot. Know who needs to be part of the conversation. This is really important. Again, with Access Areas, we work with 22 associate artists, all of whom are incredibly empowered, independent people. Some of them have legal guardians. We must involve their legal guardians in an Access to Work application. We cannot have this conversation with a person on their own. I'm saying cannot and must. That's how I feel about it. I think it's really important that somebody's legal guardian is included. If you can, bring them on the journey with you. But more importantly, DWP will often not talk to you unless the legal guardian is signing everything off. So that's just the law, and it protects you as an organization as well. Know the artist's benefits. If somebody is on benefits, just get that information in advance rather than having to scrabble for it during the application process. It's really relevant if somebody is on universal credit versus employment support allowance. So try and get that information ahead of time. The application itself is an online application form. We would always advise, or our process at least, is that you support the artist to fill out the application questions before you go ahead and actually do it. This just gives people a bit more time to process. It makes sure that they're empowered in answering what they actually need, that you're not just telling them what they need. We really try to avoid doing that. So having the template is available to download to try to go through the answers before. Have the staff guide to hand. The staff guide, I feel like there's some manager in Access to Work that hates that the staff guide is online, but it is. So anytime, this is the link, anytime that an Access to Work advisor comes back to me, and I spoke to somebody at a break about what if somebody just doesn't understand the rules. If an Access to Work advisor comes back to me, as I had recently, and says, you can't get support for a support worker unless you're working in your home borough. And I was like, what? That's just, how do people tour? That's ridiculous. So I used the staff guideline and I said, this shows you can get support in blah, blah, blah. And I used their words, copy and paste it. and they can't really argue with me. They usually just ignore the email and then proceed with the application. So use the staff guide. Yeah, great. So sorry if, yeah, that's the prep. Third-party support. What is third-party support? Third-party support basically means that anybody applying is allowed to have somebody to help them. Somebody like me, you're allowed to have third-party support. You must give permission to the Access to Work advisor to speak to third-party support. So I'm saying you, the applicant, must give permission directly. I cannot contact Access to Work and say, Charlene would like me to make an Access to Work application for her. Please let me. It must come from Charlene. Charlene can email them from her personal email address. They will want to have a phone call with Charlene. Charlene doesn't have to say yes to that. She can just email and ask them by email. This is important when the advisor does get in touch initially. And it often can be, well, actually, no, I'm going to come back to that in a second, sorry. So this is where it can get tricky. If somebody has a legal guardian, some Access to Work advisors might say that you can't have third-party support. And it's, you know, it hurts me to my core, the idea of, well, why can't I just talk to this person's mum? They're a legal guardian. I don't need to talk to you. Why are you on this call? I'll just talk to the mum. Thank you very much. Access to Work is not accessible for anyone. It doesn't matter about access needs. It's just not accessible. This is incorrect. If you have a legal guardian, the legal guardian is entitled to third-party support. You can have third-party support. You can insist on it. If they say no, after the staff guide, the other thing that I love about Access to Work is the complaints email. Email complaints. I want to start a movement where the complaints email is nothing but a flood of people saying, yes, you can have third-party support, thank you. It works. They probably know me personally at this point. It takes some time, but they usually will be polite and they'll come back and say, I'm really sorry that this happened. You are in fact entitled to third-party support. And look, I don't want to throw shade here. Access to Work advisors have a huge workload. Some of them are lovely and they're trying their best, right? So I'm not going to go into the negative space. This is more about making sure that they understand what the rules are. But yeah, it's really important in this process of getting permission. That can sometimes be a bit sticky. So usually what I do if I'm supporting somebody to make an application, usually the advisor will email me as the third-party support because I'll be on the application and they'll say, we need permission. If they want to call the person to get permission, but maybe that person doesn't like using the phone, again, you can ask them to email, or you can set up a supported phone call. So you could say, look, very happy to do a call. They will need me to support them on the call. So can we arrange it for a certain time? And they will usually do that. Okay, how am I for time? Good. Oh God, okay. Okay, I'm gonna look now at different types of support workers. There are loads of types of support workers. I'm just gonna look at two that I think is really interesting at the moment, and it's being pulled up more. One is what they call job enabling. It's gonna get a little bit wordy again, but this will be online. So for job enabling, the example they give is the customer is performing the job role, the customer being the applicant, performing the job role, making decisions and instructing the support worker. So they're telling the support worker what to do, right? They're in charge. For this, it is possible to get up to 100% of the person's hours covered by support work. So if you work 20 hours a week, you could get 20 hours of support worker a week, up to that. The other is job replacement. This is where the customer is not performing the full job role, is not making decisions, and is not instructing the support worker. And if it's job replacement, you can only get up to 20% of your hours covered. I'm going to give you an example in a second of what this means, but you can see that it's really important. If you're thinking about creative support, the model that Helen and team have just been talking about, it's a big difference if somebody can support you for 100% of your hours or only for 20%, right? And our model of creative support is not job replacement, it's job enabling. As Charlene said, we would not be standing up on the stage without Heather supporting. Heather was not standing on this stage for Charlene. She's just made it possible. She's empowered Charlene to do it, right? So it's job enabling, and you must argue for that. Here is an example that Access to Work give. These are Access to Work's words. I'm not talking about anybody in particular. So the access to work customer is a teacher. Part of their role is to display the pupil's work, okay? As a wheelchair user, they cannot do this, so they call it support worker job aid can be awarded to help with this task. So Access to Work can award a support worker job aid to help with this task. Scenario 1, our customer gives the support worker all the pupil's work and tells them to mount a display and leaves them alone to do it. They give them a stack of paperwork, leave the room, please put a display up. This is job replacement, right? That person is doing the display instead of the applicant. So they can only get 20% of their hours covered for that task, right? Scenario 2, our customer has all the pupils' work, they keep the stack of paperwork, and they instruct the support worker in the design of the display. So for example, put Helen's work at the top right, put Nick's work at the bottom left at a diagonal, because Nick's a bit, it's a bit wonky sometimes. So. This is enabling. The support worker is in charge. They're directly telling the customer is in charge. They're directly telling the support worker, do this, do that, thank you. You can get support for 100% of your hours for that. So while this is about teaching, is actually a really good example for creative support, because this is an example of how somebody's in charge, empowered, they're telling their support worker what they need, right? So this is really important. More and more, I find advisors saying, oh, that's job replacement. You can only get 20% of hours. And I do have to copy and paste from the staff guidelines from these examples often. And I'll show you more on that in a sec. So, almost there. Stay with me. In order to prove to Access to Work what type of support worker it is, they ask you to fill out usually what's called a support worker record of tasks. It's a long name, but it does what it says. It's a record of the tasks that the support worker does. It's an hourly breakdown. So they usually say to base it off an average week. So let's say somebody works 20 hours a week, for example. They will ask you to break down different chunks of what the tasks are and how many hours they take. As I said, an advisor might argue that a task is replacement, not enabling, and then they'll only award 20% of that task. So if it's for creative support, if it is enabling, great. Maybe that's what you need. That's absolutely fine. If it's creative support, if you want a support worker for 100% of your hours, word each task to make it clear that the customer is instructing and directing the support worker at every step. And my goodness, it is like a grammar lesson in English to word this right. So here's an example. A support worker helps me with emails. I sit with them and I dictate to them what to write. I tell them what to write. I just can't type it, but I'm telling them what to write. Not a support worker drafts emails for me and then I check them over later. Because in the second example, the support worker is off doing the task on their own and then you're checking off. That's 20%. Yeah? So use that wording. Really think about the wording that you're doing. You don't need to take this in, but I'll point at a few things to be useful for the B-roll. This is what it looks like, the support worker record of tasks. You got the task name kind of on the left. So this is an example of support with learning lines, and then detail of what the support worker does. So I, being the customer, the applicant, I will go through the script with the support worker and ask them to interpret complex language or stage directions in the text. They will help me to learn lines by using accessible line learning feedback practice. Time taken per week, 5 hours. During this activity, is the support worker directed and supervised by you, and why? You always have to answer that. The answer is always yes, if it's 100% of hours. I will instruct the support worker on what elements are not clear, for example. While the support worker is doing this activity, are you performing other duties? If so, what are these? The answer is always no. Because if you are instructing the support worker in every step, you cannot be performing other duties. Again, if you are, and it is job replacement, that's absolutely fine. Just be aware that you'll get 20% of your hours covered. This is an example of text I've used. I'm not saying it will work with every advisor, but it's worked for us. Last thing. I'm a minute over. Okay. The hourly rate of support workers, this is relevant. If you're getting job replacement. So somebody is stepping in to replace you because of access needs. Access to Work will only pay up to 20% above the customer's salary. So if the disabled person earns £10 an hour, the support worker can only earn £12 an hour. I'm not making any comment on what's right or wrong in terms of pay. Just be aware of that, if it's job replacement, it's linked to the hourly rate of the applicant. But for other support workers, there's a higher limit. So for example, for the job coach that I mentioned earlier, that might be, you might get 10 sessions of a job coach paid £50 an hour or something, because that's a skilled job. So be aware that there's different levels for different types of support worker. Use the staff guide, and I'm going to flick through a few things. The one that I use the most is section 6 called support workers. There's a link again. I'm just looking really quickly at the staff guide, and then we'll take some questions. Use it. I'm going to keep saying it. Use it. Quote it. I copy and paste. I am that guy in emails. Nobody wants to get an email from me from the Access to Work team because I quote all of their staff guide. The sections that I find really useful is section 6 for support workers. Being really specific here. There are examples 1 to 6 give different types of support workers. I often try and pull from them, so that can kind of help me get it in my brain, a bit like the teacher. So look at those examples. I found them useful. Example 9 is relevant if the support worker is an employee of the company. So for example, Access Areas has a few employees on a few support workers on payroll. It's certain rules around that. Example 9 gives you some good guidance on that. There's a table for the type of support work, and it has all the different hourly rates that support workers can get paid. So use that table, refer to it, and try and have an idea of which type of support worker you're talking about. Use it for hourly rates. There's the link to the staff guide. Okay, did I make it? We got to questions. Yay!
Wow.
Sorry.
Wow. Another mind-blowing. Wow. Well, you know what? Sometimes, Patch, I really want to pick your brain. Wait. Actually, no. I changed my mind. You keep it. Love you, Patrick.
Thanks.
Does anyone in the room have any questions?
Oh, Grace might need to steal a mic. Thanks, Ryan.
Hello, yes, that was very interesting, fascinating. Have you ever known someone to have access to work, so they're being employed through a company, but then they might also do some additional work outside that company, and a support worker can sit across the work that they do across kind of multiple, roles?
Absolutely, yes. The support, the Access to Work grant is for that person and whatever work they may do. If that person works as an actor in 2 different companies, that's fairly straightforward. If they work as an actor and then an usher, it's still possible. There are a couple of ways that can work. Somebody can have 2 different grants. So without naming names, I know somebody who does exactly what I just said. They have a grant with us, and Access Areas is the third-party support. We help them to manage it, do everything I just said. They also work as a theatre venue as an usher, and they have a separate grant for that time, and the theatre venue helps them manage that bit. That's totally fine. But equally, there'll be no problem with that person using their grant to work with another acting company. It's their grant. It's their say. So that's absolutely fine.
And does that then...
Do you mind using the mic just for the live stream? Yeah. Thank you.
And then does that person need to still meet the same thresholds for self-employment?
Yeah. The short answer is yes. Again, remember that this is all about the individual and their earnings, their needs. So even if that work is spread across 10 companies, it's still the same, the threshold for all their work.
So that person looks at what they're earning in total
Exactly.
and makes an application based on that. Thank you very much.
Sorry? Oh, yeah.
I've got one at the back, and I'll come back to you.
We're just going to go to the back first, and then we'll come to you next, if that's all right. Thank you.
Hi, thank
Thank you. Sorry, I'll be quick. I was just wondering, in terms of payment, how does paying somebody a training bursary rather than a self-employed fee, if you have somebody on contract, say, and they, I don't know, the payment's around £500 a term for a couple of terms, if you just pay it as a training bursary, is that okay? Or rather than somebody needing to have a UTR?
So basically, if they're on payroll, you can just pay them through payroll. If not, they do need to have a unique tax reference number.
Even for a training bursary?
Even for a training bursary. Training bursary is not a term that Access to Work use, and I would say very strongly, because they don't fund training, don't use the word training. Even if we know that it's correct, it might spook an advisor. So there's a couple of things. It's a good question. If somebody is earning under £1,000 a year, then they don't legally need to register as self-employed. It's considered a hobby, right? For Access to Work, you still do need the unique tax reference number, even if you're earning 100 quid. So even if it's a training bursary, legally, they're still self-employed being paid that bursary, if that makes sense.
So if they're just receiving universal credit and they're volunteer, they don't normally get paid anything. It's just because they're in a trainee role rather than.
Yeah, that's very familiar, and that's something that we've done. What you would need to do if you want to get Access to Work for them is register them as self-employed, which again is relatively straightforward, but they'll need to do a tax return. And then you can do the Access to Work application. If they don't need Access to Work, or if you don't want to go down that route, then you don't have to worry. They can earn that bursary and you don't need to worry.
Right.
But you should still go through, they still need to record that money coming into their bank as income for universal credit. It doesn't really matter whether you call it a training bursary or not. It's still them earning money, if that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No worries. And if that's not clear, follow up with an email and I can look at the specific case if you want. There's a question at the front here.
So my question is, you said that with universal credit, if you receive a bit more than the supposed amount, you'd receive less from universal credit. But say you earn a lot more, then the next month, how much less would you need to earn than your allowed amount to get the normal amount from universal credit?
That is a really, really good question. If you earn a lot more in that month, but the next month you don't earn anything, or you earn below the amount, it doesn't matter how much you earn. You don't need to earn less. You just need to earn under that work allowance amount.
To then get the normal amount for that second month.
So it's a really good question. Sometimes, we talked earlier about spreading out payments to give people regular income. Sometimes if somebody does one big acting job, it's actually better for them to just get that money in 1 month. They don't get any payments from Universal Credit that month, but then the next month, their payments from Universal Credit go back to normal.
The normal amount.
The normal amount, exactly.
Yeah.
As long as you put it in the portal, the online portal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we should go to our online audience. Megan, have we got any questions from our online?
Yeah, thanks, Charlene. We've got a lot, but I'll I'll read two if that's okay. Yeah. So Kerry Holland says, I thought Access to Work is only available if you're already employed. How can it work for job interviews and auditions?
It's a very good question, Kerry. Just acknowledging that it is now 4:30. If anybody needs to go live stream or anything else, it's absolutely fine. This will be recorded. You can catch up with the last few minutes afterwards. But if we're okay, we might run over a bit, if that's okay. So how can it be available for auditions? What often happens is that a person, let's say an actor, will get a grant that is not just for one acting job, it's a grant for a year. So you make the case that in a normal year or in the coming year, I will earn this much money over these different jobs, right? So you don't just have to apply for one contract, one job. You can apply as a freelancer, as a self-employed person for all of your work. So then if you have that grant, then you can use that to pay for a support worker at an audition. It is possible to apply for Access to Work for support in an interview, and I think where that becomes really relevant is BSL support at interviews. It's just that the turnaround time is so long that it just is often not practical, right? So we find that that's useful. It's most useful when somebody has a grant in place for a year for all the different types of work that they do. They need to give some evidence. Like we said, we sometimes give some contracts of work from accessible areas that this work is coming up, but it means they can dip into that for the jobs or for other auditions that they might have. Hope that answers your question, Curry.
Okay, one more from online.
Cool, yeah. Sammy from Hijinks Theatre says, does the support worker fee have to be hourly rather than daily or weekly like an actor?
Yes. Yes, but we know how the real world works. So access to work will require an hourly fee. We do that as a 7-hour day or a 9-hour day or whatever the hours are, and just break it down to an hourly fee. But the short answer is yes, it has to be hourly, and they will often ask for 3 quotes of how much 3 different support workers will cost, and they go with the cheapest. So if you ever need us to quote you an hourly rate that's higher than what you want to pay, we can be one of your other quotes. I did not say that. Okay, that might be, we're over time, so I'll hand back to Charlene.
Yeah.
We do have one more thing, but yeah, keep going.
Yeah, just to let you know, if you've got any more questions and people that are still online, still watching, you can still keep your comments and we will get back to you and answer your questions as soon as possible.
Can I just say a big, massive thank you for supporting us today and give yourselves a round of applause.
Oh, and also just a quick thank you. Can we say a big thank you to our BSLs? And also thank you to all behind the scenes as well. Give a big thank you for our captioners as well. Thank you.
Just before we finish, we have one little other thing. I'll give you this. One little other thing to share with the room, which is a kind of a secret. Nick.
If you have the next slide, please. We teased you earlier about a special event that we're going to be running here at the Lowry. It's going to be a 360 immersive experience in the Keys. We're going to completely transform the Keys with a 360 video design, working with Occam's Razor, who are also a partner here at the Lowry, with new videos of content designed by architectural artist Stephen Wiltshire. It's going to be starring our very own Deo Collier, star of EastEnders. And also another Axel Areas artist, Lee Phillips. And it's going to be, it's hard to put it in words really in about 30 seconds, but I'll do my best. It's an astronomer and an artist, 2 autistic astronomer and artists meeting across time and space, really trying to figure out what value and success means in learning disabled and autistic people's lives. It's going to be an epic experience. I'd love for you all to come and see it and have that experience with us. Because you brilliantly stayed all the way till 4:35, and for those on the live stream who are still here, you get access to a very exclusive QR code that will take you to a private page on our website where you can sign up and be the first to get discounted tickets in April when we officially launch this show. So please do scan away, and Megan will put it in the live stream as well, and we hopefully will see you back in October, the week of the 20th of October. There we go. Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. And we've got one more slide before we wrap up, Charlene.
Oh, yes, please keep in contact, please, yeah. And also follow us on our social media and also give us a little like, pretty please.
And just we also have Blue Sky now. It's the same as our Twitter link. Thank you.
And how about DIY?
And DIY?
You can either tell me to turn around because I've got the link on, I've got the website on the back of my t-shirt, or you can just Google DIY Theatre Company and you can find us there.
Brilliant. And thank you so much to the Lowry for supporting us here today. Thank you.
And people that are in the room, please stay if you can to have a drink and have a chat as well. Yeah. So thank you.
And thanks to live streamers.
Thank you. Bye.